I'm here in Kyoto, Japan, and we're staying in this beautifully renovated machiya. Now, in case you're wondering, what is a machiya? Here's a quick rundown. Machiya are traditional wooden townhouses found throughout Japan, but are particularly notable in Kyoto, the historical capital of Japan. A typical machiya is a long wooden home with narrow street frontage. They usually have earthen walls, baked tile roofs, and usually between 1 to 2 stories high with 1 or more courtyard gardens. With the front of the building used as retail or shop space and rear for living quarters, these versatile and culturally significant structures form the defining characteristic of downtown Kyoto architecture for centuries. But sadly, in recent decades, the number of machiya in Japan has rapidly declined, with many being demolished in order to make space for newer buildings that are considered safer, easier to maintain, and compliant with regulations. Thankfully though, there has been renewed interest in revitalizing machiya, and that's where our machiya comes in. So I found this place on booking.com, and no, this is not sponsored or anything. I just want to be honest in saying that I have no idea if this place is historically accurate or anything like that. I don't know the history behind this place, and it's been renovated to be a holiday rental. So there's no retail shop front space, and it's a corner block as well. But as a cozy holiday rental for a family, this place is absolutely perfect. Anyway, enough talking, let's go have a look inside. This is the genkan. It serves as a buffer zone to prevent outside elements from affecting the main living area, which is right up here. Here on the left is the first tatami room. It's minimal and clean with some nice touches, like this pumpkin-shaped light. Coming back through the living room is the kitchen. It was super well equipped with all kinds of bowls, plates, cups, and appliances. Now, as I edit this video, I did some research, and apparently this machiya was previously owned by a folding fan artisan. It was refurbished in 2016, but originally built in 1920, making the building more than 100 years old. Moving on, behind the kitchen is this sliding door, which reveals a small garden. We were in Kyoto from the end of November to middle of December, which is prime autumn season. The leaves on this tree had fallen, but Kyoto in general had plenty of stunning autumn scenery. Moving back inside, there is a staircase that takes us to this landing. Looking over this, we can see the front door and genkan. The high ceilings feel really spacious, and the skylight brings in plenty of sunlight. Now to the right here is the second tatami room. And turning back around, we see the master bedroom. It has 2 Western style double beds in it, but my wife and daughter are sleeping right now, so we're not going to disturb them. Finally, if we go downstairs, we have the one thing no home should be without. So the thing I really like about this place is it kind of blends the old and the new. So you've got these really big exposed wooden beams up here, and you can also see how they kind of blend into the gyprock or the plasterboard, or the more normal like white walls that you would see in a building. And this place was like one of the reasons I was super excited about this trip. Usually you're excited about going to see a certain site or eat a certain food or do something in particular, but for me this was the highlight. So as an artist, I really wanted to capture it in an illustration. So you can see the house in the background. It's about 10 a.m. and I'm going to take some location shots. I just want to take some photos of the house so I can reference them when I go back home, because I don't want to spend hours and hours sitting here drawing, especially because I'm in a local neighborhood and I don't want to disturb the neighbors. Case in point, there's a truck right here, so I got to move out of the way. So yeah, I'm going to take some photos and let's see how it goes. Okay guys, so we are back at my desk and you can see the reference photo here in front of me. Now, obviously I'm not going to trace over this. I also have it up on a laptop in front of me that I can reference there. So the way I'm going to approach this is I've split it up into 3 simple steps, and hopefully that'll help you understand how to approach a drawing like this. And with each step, I'm going to go through a major mistake or a trap that's kind of trapped me in the past and has been a major blocking point for me in my drawing journey. And so no matter where you are at in your art journey, I hope that it's relatable to you and I think it will be really helpful. So the way I like to approach this is just by looking at my image and trying to understand, before I even put down any lines, you know, what shapes are in the image and then also what the perspective is doing. So let's put down a perspective grid. I'm going to go to Canvas and then go to Drawing Guide right here. And now I'm going to edit the drawing guide and we're going to create a perspective grid like this. And you can see here, tap to create vanishing points. So you can obviously see, you know, we've got this major 2 vanishing points here. So you've got one here and one here. So I'm going to create one there and I'm going to create one here. And it doesn't have to be exact, but what I want to do is, delete that one. What I want to do is first get this blue line, which is the horizon line, roughly where I think this should be. Okay, so our perspective grid is in, but let's talk about the major shapes in this image. You can obviously see there's this shape here. And then within this building, it actually splits into 2 buildings. So this building was the one that we were staying in, and then this is like another residence. And then you've got behind that, we have like this red building with another some small stuff here, but I'll kind of put them together. You've got an apartment block and kind of another building as well, but I'll put them together as well. And then here on this side, you've got a number of small buildings, but I'd put them all as one chunk as well. And the reason I'm highlighting these areas is because when I do my planning sketch, I want to make sure I highlight the bounds of each of these sections so that when I start doing my detailing or the sketch phase, I don't leave those bounds and I'm able to keep everything on the paper. Okay, so now that you can see kind of roughly what I'm seeing, let's jump into the actual planning drawing itself. I'm going to create another layer on top of this. Let's just delete that layer. And this is going to be the planning layer. And I'm going to switch back to my black. And I'm using the HB pencil. It's one of the default brushes in Procreate. It's under the sketching section. And I've tweaked just 2 settings in this. So I made the maximum size 50% and the minimum size 1%. I can't remember what the defaults were, but that's what I've tweaked it to. Okay, and we obviously have to turn off our layer here. And let's begin. Well, where do I begin? Okay, so the first thing I want to put in is the perspective, or like, you know, the 2 streets that are converging. So I think it's roughly like this. It's really funny because like once you turn off the reference photo, it becomes really daunting and you don't know what to do. But yeah, I need to just think back to those major shapes that we were talking about. So you had like and the key here is not to be too perfect about things. Like just, you want to block out those main sections. Okay guys, so I finished the planning phase, but yeah, that's one of the big mistakes I've made in the past, not spending enough time planning and getting proportion right and just getting all my objects on the page and getting perspective right. If you don't do this, you can really make you stuck, and you can spend a lot of time detailing stuff and screwing up later on and having to redo a lot of that work. So spend some time to get this right, and then you can move on to the next step, which is the fun part, the sketch itself. This phase is much more fun, and you can just dive into filling out the details. You can really zone out, put on some music and relax, especially since a lot of the structural stuff was done in planning. But if you zone out too much, you might fall into the second trap or mistake that can lead to many drawings being discarded. So during this phase, you'll find yourself looking at the reference, then back again at this drawing, and then back at the reference and back at the drawing, and so forth and so on. And you can get really carried away with this, getting into what I like to call photocopy mode. It's where you focus too much on copying details and forget one key thing. You're not a photocopier, you're an artist. And as artists, we need to interpret reality and not just copy it. If you keep copying, you'll find your art looking stiff or weird or just lacking any sense of style. So the solution to this is to let go of the reference and allow your own natural flair to shine. So just to give an example of some places where I think I did a good job of that, for example here there's some leaves, and I've kind of just used my own style to interpret how that should look or just suggest a feeling of trees. And also with the telegraph pole, like this is not factually accurate. I've just drawn a bunch of lines and it's kind of suggesting the feeling of a telegraph pole. Another way I like to kind of snap myself out of it is just to turn off the drawing guide. And yeah, now all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm actually drawing an artwork. It's not just this comparison or copying exercise. So I need to be mindful of how it actually looks as a drawing. And I know that sounds really dumb, but it's just so easy to get lost in it and forget that you're actually doing an artwork. And this is something that should look beautiful and just really show your own style regardless of accuracy of that to the original reference. Okay, so I finally finished the sketch and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And I feel like it's balancing that line between being accurate to the reference while still having a bit of my own style. Oh, and one more thing, I've added myself, my wife, and my baby daughter. Yeah, I guess if there's any hallmark of my style, it's these characters. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's jump into the final step and see the finished result. The biggest mistake in the painting phase occurs before we even lay a single stroke. If we look here in my layers, you see the background color is actually a gray. So this gray right here. And the reason for that is because color is relative. And I don't want my canvas to be a bright white, because sometimes when you place down colors relative to a bright white, they can be really off. So I just want something that's more neutral color. So that's why I'm working with a gray. But now we're gonna, we're in the painting layout. So now I'm going to select a color. And the color that I'm going to select is actually the color of the sky. So maybe it's something like this, a blue. And yeah, I'm just going to paint the entire image like this. Okay, so I need to paint this apartment building, which is obviously a yellow color. And here's the interesting thing, right? Like if I choose yellow, obviously it's not going to be that yellow because that's way too bright and literal. To me, by my eye, it looks kind of like this. And the interesting thing is, right now, if you just saw this swatch on its own, you might actually think that it's kind of a gray color. But right now, what's actually influencing my perception of this color, this gray color, is actually this blue background. And because of this blue background, it's making me think that it looks kind of yellowish actually. So let me put this down. Now, if I go and turn off this blue layer, I don't know, does that look yellow anymore? Like, it's different, right? It's changed. Let me try changing this background color actually. Okay, so that's filled with white. Now let me turn on this supposedly yellow layer, and there you go. So see how like the background layer makes a huge difference as to how you perceive the colors that you place on the canvas. Like before, this looked really yellow, but now that I've turned off the blue background, it looks super gray. Let me turn this sky back on, and all of a sudden, there you go, this has turned yellow again. And that's the big mistake I've made in the past when painting. Starting with a white canvas because I didn't understand the relativity of color. Always make the canvas the color of the ambient light in the scene, giving you a baseline to gauge other colors. Alright, enough talking, I'm going to dig in and get this painted. By the way, the brushes I'm using here are from my Essentials brush pack. My round wet brush, horizontal and vertical brushes are perfect for laying down large blocks of color, blending and highlighting. You can get them from my Buy Me a Coffee page. All purchases go towards supporting the channel and allow me to continue making art and videos. So as I get further in, I'm slowly painting over the sketch on new layers above. This is when the painting really begins to pop and you can get some juicy details. I paint over more into the center of the image while leaving the edges sketchy, which helps focus the viewer. Also, I think the underlying sketch looks cool, so I don't want to fully paint over it. Finally, I repainted the characters as I felt my first pass wasn't really sitting with the rest of the painting. These new ones really gave a boost to the overall scene and made it feel complete. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.